We all look for it, don't we? That singular secret, the magical shortcut.
The one formula.
Yeah, the one formula that just lets us bypass all the hard work and grants us, ultimate power or instant success. We look at history and we think it's all about genius, that some people are just born with it.
Right, and that search, that desire for a mystical hack, it's completely understandable. But it makes us miss the most powerful tool we actually have.
Which is?
The masterful mind, the one that's been highly, highly cultivated over time.
And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're going to strip away the myth of instant genius. This whole deep dive is about defining mastery.
But not as some trait you inherit.
No, not at all. It's an intuitive power, a deep internalized understanding of how things work that's completely at your command. But the key is, you have to earn it.
And our sources lay out a really clear map for this journey. It's a path defined by three essential phases, three major transformations, really.
Okay, so phase 1 is this necessary inward turn. It's called discovering the life's task. This is where you have to align with your deep, unique inclinations.
Then you hit phase 2, which is the longest part and frankly the least glamorous, the apprenticeship.
The long slog.
That's it. It demands a total submission to reality. You're just acquiring skills, doing endless repetition, and it transforms your character from, say, naive to objective.
And if you make it through that, you get to phase 3, the creative active phase.
And that's the goal. That's the synthesis stage where all that hard-won knowledge, it just fuses, and your intuition becomes this powerful, reliable engine for creation.
Okay, but before we get to the individual path, the sources ground this whole idea in our biology and our ancient past. We have to go way, way back.
Like we do. We have to understand the roots of mastery, this two-part transformation that happened in the brains of our primitive human ancestors hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Well, let's unpack that, because this evolutionary story is really crucial. I mean, if you look at our early ancestors, they were not physically impressive.
Not at all.
Compared to the predators they were living alongside. No great claws, no overwhelming strength. And yet, they became the apex predator.
And the material really highlights that this dominance didn't come from their hands, from making tools, not initially. The real power, the leap forward, came from the brain.
So our ancestors won the evolutionary race by basically fashioning their minds into the most sophisticated tool in nature.
Exactly. And that allowed them to overcome all those physical limitations. It really leveraged two things: this capacity for sophisticated observation and a deep social drive.
Which brings us to a more modern discovery: mirror neurons.
Yeah, this was in the 1990s. Italian neuroscientists, they found these specific neurons that fire not only when you perform an action like reaching for something,
right,
but they also fire when you just watch someone else do the exact same thing.
That's profound. It means just by watching, you're creating a kind of a simulated internal experience of the action.
It's the biological basis for imitation, for empathy, for all social learning. And in humans, this system became much, much more sophisticated. We can go beyond just anticipating a physical movement.
We get the ability to, think inside things.
Think inside almost anything around us. We can think inside the social dynamic, which helps us anticipate what others are planning. That's key for cooperation, for hunting.
I see. But the sources say it extends beyond that, even to, inanimate objects.
Oh, absolutely. Think about a primitive tool maker. The true master, after years and years of practice, uses those same mirror neurons to feel the stone they're shaping. It's like an extension of their own hand.
So they're not just seeing a rock. They're feeling its internal resistance, its weak points.
Its potential shape, exactly. The brain is translating objective reality into a subjective motor command. It's that feel.
So all that repetition, all that practice is essentially building these deep internal circuits in the brain that model reality. But how does that connect to that flash of genius, to true mastery?
It connects through automaticity. After thousands of hours, a skill like tracking an animal or throwing a spear, it becomes completely automatic. You don't have to consciously think about the steps anymore.
Okay, so your conscious mind is now freed up.
It's totally freed up. And that mental space, what the sources call a compensatory power, lets you focus on higher level problems. You're not thinking, how do I hold this spear? You're thinking, where is the herd going? What is my rival planning?
And this leads to what the source calls a preverbal version of third level intelligence.
Basically, a gut feeling. but a very complex one that evolved long before we even had the language to describe it. It's a primitive form of intuition, the same biological root system that a Leonardo da Vinci would later tap into.
And it evolved before language. That's why it feels so hard to put into words, even now.
Because it's an ancient power surfacing. It's visceral, it's immediate.
Wow. Okay, that is a perfect transition. If that intuitive power is the goal, the big question for all of us is, how do we activate it now in our own lives?
And that takes us straight into the first transformation, the first and maybe most important step on the path.
So the journey doesn't start by looking out at the job market. It starts by looking inward.
Entirely inward. The very first step toward mastery is aligning yourself with what the sources call your life's task.
And the core concept here is the seed, the idea that every single one of us is genetically unique.
A one-time phenomenon. And that uniqueness tries to express itself, usually in childhood, through these primal inclinations, these things that just naturally attract you.
It sounds a little mystical, but it's presented as a really powerful, almost an assertive inner energy.
It is a deep curiosity that's trying to guide you. It could be an attraction to music, a need to solve puzzles, a compulsion to just take things apart and build them.
And here's the critical warning, right?
Yeah.
If you stray from this inner force, you're putting yourself on a really dangerous path.
A self-defeating path, yeah. Usually because of what the sources call counterforces. Social pressure. Parents pushing you toward a safe career that isn't right for you.
So what's the actual cost of going down that wrong path? It's not just being a little unhappy at work, is it?
No, it's profound. Your desire just wanes. Work becomes mechanical, something you just endure to make money so you can live your real life on the weekends.
You become alienated from your own potential.
Totally. And that passivity, it leads to frustration and often deep depression. The sources are really clear on this. It's a tragic, existential waste of your life.
That's a heavy warning. So to avoid that, we have to identify this inner voice. And the advice is to look beyond the subject and focus on the sensation it triggered.
That sensation is the real preverbal attraction. Let's look at some examples. Albert Einstein. We think of relativity, but his first inclination wasn't physics theory.
It was invisible forces.
Exactly. It started when he was 5. His father gave him a compass.
And he was just transfixed by it, this needle moving on its own.
That simple object sparked this lifelong obsession with understanding the hidden forces that govern the universe. The subject, physics, came after the sensation, which was the mystery of the unseen.
That's a great distinction. And then you have someone like the film director, Ingmar Bergman. His childhood thing wasn't, I want to be in the movie business.
No, it was the sensation of creating and animating life. He got this crude little cinematograph, a toy, when he was 9. He'd sit in a dark closet for hours, just watching these flickering images magically come to life.
So it wasn't the tech. It was the power to conjure a world.
That's it. And that sensation guided his entire career.
Or Martha Graham, the dancer.
Yeah.
She was frustrated with words. She felt like language just couldn't capture her deepest feelings.
You know, when she saw her first dance performance, it was an epiphany. She realized her vocation was nonverbal. It was about finding a visceral truth through movement.
John Coltrane, he had these powerful emotional and spiritual longings, but no way to get them out.
A very serious young man. And then he sees Charlie Parker perform. And he has this realization, Parker isn't just playing notes. He's using that saxophone as a primal voice to articulate those same feelings.
So Coltrane's life's task wasn't just music. It was using sound to explore his own spiritual landscape.
In all these cases, the initial attraction is pure. It's not infected by what society wants or what your parents want. It's a true reflection of their unique psychological makeup.
Okay, so you recognize that unique chemistry. That's stage 1. But how do you turn that feeling into an actual path in the real world?
The sources lay out a 3-stage process for this. First, you have to reconnect.
Because for a lot of us, that inner voice was drowned out years ago.
Decades ago. So you have to search your past, childhood memories, things that gave you intense joy. You have to actively clear away all the noise from parents and peers and find the core pattern of your character.
And then stage 2 is to enlarge the concept of work. This one sounds counterintuitive.
It is, because our society rigidly separates work and pleasure. Work is for money, pleasure is for later, but the material says if you spend most of your waking life on something alienating, you are wasting your life.
Work has to be a vocation.
Yeah.
Deeply connected to who you are.
It's a psychological imperative, not just a career choice. Otherwise, you're stuck in that quiet depression of not living up to your potential.
And stage 3 is understanding it's a journey with twists and turns. It's not a straight line.
Not at all. You start in a field that roughly fits, you learn the essential skills, you build confidence, and then with the self-knowledge you gain, you can adjust, you can pivot, you can expand. You just can't stop moving from that foundation.
Leonardo da Vinci is the classic example of this fluid journey. As a kid, he was just compelled to draw from nature.
He had to. And you see it in his apprenticeship. He's asked to paint an angel in Verrocchio's painting. He can't just imitate his master's style, he has to invent.
He paints hyper-realistic flowers in the foreground, and for the angel's face, he experiments with new paints to get this soft radiance he saw on people praying in church.
His artistic drive was always fused with scientific observation and a hunger for innovation, and his career reflected that.
He wasn't content to just be a painter in Florence.
Absolutely not. He moves to Milan and positions himself not just as an artist, but as an overall advisor to the Duke. Military engineering, architecture, anatomy. He knew his mind worked best when he had multiple, diverse projects on the go.
He was building connections between everything.
His unique strength was unifying all forms of knowledge.
Okay, so if Da Vinci is the ideal, we have to talk about R. Buckminster Fuller. He's the counterexample of what happens when you go off your path.
And the painful reversal you have to make.
Yeah, Fuller tried to follow a normal, lucrative business path. He got into this building system company. He poured years into it, trying to innovate.
But his partners just wanted to make money.
Right. He was a purist, an innovator. They were businessmen. The company failed. He was fired, and he found himself in total ruin.
This was a complete collapse for him.
It was. It led to that famous moment of crisis by Lake Michigan in 1927. He's contemplating suicide, and then he describes hearing this profound inner voice.
What did the voice tell him? It told him he belonged to the universe. And that his job wasn't to make money, but to apply his unique experiences for the advantage of others.
That is a radical shift. He basically abandons the whole idea of a conventional career.
He did. He swore he would only listen to his own inner voice from then on, trusting that if he just did his true work, the money and recognition would eventually come as a byproduct.
And they did. The dime action car, the geodesic dome. He became famous and wealthy because he committed to his own weird, singular path.
And his story teaches us something so important, that pain and frustration you feel when you're on the wrong path, that's not just random failure.
It's a signal.
It's a critical guiding signal telling you to stop, listen, and correct your course immediately.
Okay, so once you've identified that life's task, you need the discipline to match it. Which brings us to phase 2. The apprenticeship.
This is the part that gets the least attention, in the biographies because it's not very dramatic. But it's where the first real transformation happens.
It's the long, hard slog, 5 to 10 years usually. And the goal isn't money or a promotion.
No, the goal is totally internal. It's the complete transformation of your mind and character. You're moving from being subjective and scattered to being disciplined, focused, and objective.
You're grounding yourself in reality.
In reality as it actually is, not as you want it to be. And the principle that governs this entire phase is submission.
Submission. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means when you enter a new environment, a new job, a new field, your first task is to just observe and absorb. You learn the rules, the procedures, the power dynamics, everything.
Charles Darwin on the HMS Beagle is the perfect example of this.
A perfect example. He was a young, kind of aimless guy when he got on that ship, and he spent the first few months just studying the social life on board. He submitted completely to the unwritten rules and hierarchies.
But why? Why not just jump into the science?
Because he knew that if he caused conflict, if he rocked the boat, his real work, the science, would be constantly disrupted. By fitting in, he saved all his mental energy for what mattered.
And on a deeper level, that submission turned him into the ultimate observer.
He trained himself to see things exactly as they are. He systematically emptied his mind of all his preconceived notions, religious, social, all of it. He just spent years gathering raw data before he even tried to form a theory.
So he returns home a completely different person, a serious, objective scientist.
And that process of learning through pure observation leads directly to what's called tacit knowledge.
That feel for what you're doing. The thing that's easy to do but hard to explain.
Your brain is built for it, thanks to those mirror neurons. And the historical blueprint for this is the medieval apprenticeship model.
Which was not a 6-month course. This was a 7-year commitment.
A serious 7-year commitment. And the learning environment was severe. You learned by watching, by endless repetition, and by hands-on work.
And crucially, they weren't practicing on scrap material.
No, materials were way too expensive. Stone, fine wood, pigments, so apprentices worked directly on the final product. This forced an incredible level of focus and precision.
So that pressure instilled the discipline. And over 7 years, you're getting way more than 10,000 hours of this deep, qualitative learning.
And the result is this staggering level of shared nonverbal knowledge. I mean, the fact that they built the great Gothic cathedrals without modern blueprints tells you everything. The knowledge was in their hands, not just on paper.
Now, in the modern world, we have to create our own apprenticeships. We have to manipulate our circumstances.
Benjamin Franklin is the master of this. He's stuck as an apprentice in his brother's printing shop, just manual labor, but he wants to be a writer.
So he turns the shop into his own private school.
Exactly. He's secretly studying the English newspapers they're printing. He's analyzing the style, imitating it, critiquing himself. While his brother just sees a laborer, Franklin is conducting this advanced self-directed writing course.
That's brilliant. And Einstein does something similar with the patent office job.
Yeah, on the surface, it's a boring, low-level bureaucratic job. But he chose it deliberately. He found that analyzing patent applications, visualizing these new inventions, was just like doing little puzzles or thought experiments.
So he got so good at the day job, he could do it in a few hours.
And then spend the rest of his day at his desk working on his own physics problems. The job gave him cover and cognitive training at the same time.
Or Martha Graham, who chose poverty over a comfortable job so she could have the time to create a whole new form of dance.
She knew a demanding commercial job would just drain her energy and kill her creativity. The sacrifice was necessary for the art.
And all of this requires a huge amount of humility, which brings up this fascinating point about adult learning disabilities.
Smugness, superiority, the assumption that we already know best.
The story of the linguist Daniel Everett trying to learn the Pirahan language in the Amazon is just incredible.
It is. He arrives with all the most advanced formal linguistic methods. And after a year, he's made almost no progress. The language is a total mystery.
And he realizes the problem isn't the language. It's him.
It's his attitude. He's treating the villagers like specimens, studying them from a distance, assuming a position of superiority. He had to realize that you can't separate the Pirahan language from their culture, their rituals, their whole worldview.
So what was the solution?
He had to revert to a childlike spirit. He made a conscious choice to become like a child, to feel inferior and dependent. He started hunting with them, making canoes, just living with them.
And the language just opened up to him.
It came alive from within. Because he finally dropped the pretense and adopted a state of open, hungry curiosity. It's a huge lesson for learning anything deeply.
You have to be willing to be a beginner again, which is also key for the next element, the mentor.
A good mentor is a massive shortcut in the apprenticeship. Life's too short to learn it all yourself. But the goal, and this is critical, isn't just to serve them.
It's to absorb their power and eventually surpass them.
And Michael Faraday's pursuit of Sir Humphrey Davy is the ultimate story of this. Faraday had the technical knowledge, but he knew he needed proximity to a living master.
He was relentless. He wrote letters, applied for jobs. Davy rejected him.
And that would have been the end for most people. But Faraday did something masterful. He took all the notes from Davy's public lectures and turned them into this beautifully bound booklet.
And sent it as a gift.
As a gift. It was a demonstration of his quality and discipline without begging. And soon after Davy's lab assistant gets fired, Faraday immediately takes the low-paid, menial job.
Just cleaning bottles and sweeping floors.
All for one reason, proximity. Just to be in that environment. And it paid off. He's with Davy in Europe when Davy proves that diamonds are just pure carbon.
And Faraday isn't just learning the facts. He's absorbing Davy's whole thought process.
He's observing the observer. How Davy speculates, how he connects ideas. And that's the key. Faraday takes Davy's ideas about electricity and magnetism and has a vision for an experiment that Davy himself couldn't figure out.
The wire suspended in mercury.
And it works. It demonstrates continuous electromagnetic motion. It's the foundation for the electric motor. Faraday literally transformed the menial access he had into a form of gold.
Okay, so the apprenticeship is about technical skill. But there's this parallel track that's just as important, mastering the human element, social intelligence.
And if you don't master this, your technical skill can actually become a liability, a huge one.
Because most of us start with what the sources call a naive perspective.
Yeah, where we're just focused inward on our own emotions, our insecurities, and we filter the world through that. We idealize people who praise us and demonize people who criticize us.
We're blind to what's really motivating them. Benjamin Franklin was a textbook case of this when he was young.
Oh, absolutely. He writes those brilliant do-good letters, and then, because he needs validation, he confesses to his older brother, James.
He expected praise.
And instead, he got pure envy and resentment. James made his life impossible. Then he makes the same mistake again, trusting Governor Keith, who promises him the world, and then leaves him stranded in London with no money.
So he realizes he's got this pattern. He's totally rational in his work, but an emotional mess with people.
So he decides to systematically break the pattern. First, detached observation. He forces himself to step back and observe people like characters in a play, to figure out their real motives.
And second, he adopts a radical acceptance of human nature.
He just stops getting angry that people are flawed. He accepts that some people are frivolous, like Keith, or vindictive, like his brother.
It's like accepting the thorns on a rose.
Exactly. Raging against their nature is pointless. It's better to just observe, accumulate knowledge, and work around them.
And this leads to his famous ally strategy with his political foe, Isaac Norris.
A man who opposed him on principle. Franklin, instead of fighting him head-on, observes him. He notices Norris has this huge library and is very proud of one specific rare book.
So Franklin writes him a polite note, asking to borrow that one book.
It's a stroke of genius. It plays directly to Norris's vanity. He's flattered, he sends the book over, and when Franklin returns it, the whole dynamic has shifted.
By asking for a favor, he turned an enemy into an ally, without any confrontation.
And you see the culmination of this skill when he's in France during the War of Independence. He adopts French dress, he plays the part of the humble, rustic philosopher.
He was playing to their vanity.
He was playing to their idea of what an American should be. And it worked. He secured the military alliance that won the war. Social intelligence isn't a soft skill, it's a hard protective shield for your work.
To really drive this point home, the sources give us the tragic story of Ignaz Semmelweis.
The ultimate counterexample. It shows how a lack of social intelligence can completely negate scientific truth.
Semmelweis was the doctor who was horrified by the rates of childbed fever. 1 in 6 mothers were dying in his clinic.
And after years of investigation, he figured it out. It was the doctors. They were going from autopsies straight to delivering babies, carrying what he called putrid matter on their hands.
His solution was simple. Just wash your hands with chlorinated lime. And the death rate was cut in half, instantly. He was decades ahead of his time.
But his social skills were a complete disaster. His boss saw him as an upstart. And Semmelweis, instead of being diplomatic, was a tyrant. He forced the new rules on everyone, alienating them all.
He treated them like murderers.
And when he finally published his findings, it wasn't a calm scientific paper. It was a 600-page rant. Repetitive, convoluted, and he literally called his colleagues murderers in print.
So he gave them all the ammunition they needed to attack him personally.
They could just ignore the data and attack his character. And they did. His work was ignored for decades. He died broke and alone in an asylum. It's just a stunning tragedy.
Wow, and you contrast that with someone like William Harvey, who discovered the circulation of the blood.
Harvey was a master of court politics. He was humble. He brought powerful people into his work, made them feel invested. His book was clear, measured, and respectful. He let the work speak for itself.
Because he knew that asserting his own genius would just make him a target.
He knew that social intelligence wasn't optional. It's the difference between recognition and ruin.
Okay, so we've gone from the initial calling through the long apprenticeship, and now we get to the top of the mountain, the creative active phase.
This is the third and final transformation. This is the fusion of everything you've learned. The rational mind and the intuitive mind start working together as one.
And the key characteristic of this phase is synthesis, the ability to connect ideas across different fields. The goal is to become what they call the universal man or woman, like Goethe.
Goethe had this restless inner curiosity he called his demon, and he channeled it into everything, literature, of course, but also geology, botany, anatomy.
Why did he need to do all of that?
Because his mind just naturally saw connections everywhere. He was a radical synthesizer. He saw the slow change in geology and applied that idea to human evolution long before Darwin. He saw a unified pattern behind all plants.
And for a while, he tried to suppress that, to just be a normal politician.
He did, and he got sick. But after he recovered in his 50s, that demon came back, but this time it was channeled by all the discipline he'd accumulated.
So he's writing novels, finishing Faust, and conducting scientific observations, all at the same time.
His mastery came from that constant synthesis, weaving all these threads of knowledge into one unified worldview.
And that effortless integration is the sign of high-level intuition. The sources use the analogy of the Amophila wasp to explain this.
Right. This wasp stings its victims like a caterpillar with incredible precision. It hits the exact nerve centers to paralyze it instantly without killing it.
But it's not calculating.
No, it's not calculating. It just has this intuitive feel for the anatomy from the inside. And for humans, that feel comes from building up countless memory traces over years of intense practice.
The human equivalent is a chess master like Bobby Fischer. He wasn't calculating moves like a computer.
No, his mind had internalized thousands and thousands of patterns, and all that knowledge fused into an intuitive feel for the whole game. He saw potential moves as fields of force sweeping across the board.
So the rational mind gathers the data, but the intuitive mind gives the instantaneous, holistic response. So if that's the goal, what are the strategies to deepen that creative process? How do we get there?
One key strategy is the need for tension and crisis. Mozart, as a young man, was brilliant, but his music was pretty conventional. He was held back by his father in the court. He needed to rebel.
And he did. He broke free.
He did. And he channeled all his adolescent confusion and emotion into forging his own style. That tension created this explosion of creativity.
So we need some constructive tension. Another strategy is working with deadlines, which seems strange. You'd think more time is better.
But the sources argue that having endless time can be debilitating. It diffuses your focus. Deadlines, real or self-imposed, force your mind to rise to the occasion. They jolt you into a higher gear where unexpected connections happen.
And then there's the classic letting go, the eureka moment.
The pattern is so consistent. You work on a problem intensely, you push your rational mind to the breaking point, and then you just stop. You go for a walk, you go to sleep, and the solution just appears.
Like Einstein, giving up on general relativity for the night. And then the solution comes to him in his sleep.
Or Wagner, blocked on an opera, and the chords come to him in a dream about sinking in water. It's the subconscious taking over and delivering the answer once the rational mind gets out of the way.
For the ultimate example of how practice creates this seamless physical knowledge, we have to talk about the fighter pilot Cesar Rodriguez.
The last American ace. And he was the total opposite of a natural. He struggled with information overload in training. He just didn't have that flair.
But he had tenacity.
He had incredible tenacity. He just compensated with sheer volume and quality of practice. He told his instructor to work him to death, repeating the hardest maneuvers over and over again.
And after years of this, something shifted.
He started having these strange sensations. He felt like the jet was an extension of his body, like he could feel it at the edge of his fingertips. The skill was becoming automatic, physical.
And the ultimate test was a dogfight during the Gulf War.
A fight that lasted just 3 or 4 minutes. He's performing this incredibly complex sequence of maneuvers to survive and win.
And when he debriefed it later, he realized something startling.
He had no conscious memory of deciding to do any of it. The actions just happened instantly, perfectly.
And it was pure flow speed.
It was his mind and body operating as one seamless unit. A physical knowledge forged through thousands of hours of intense, focused repetition. That's the creative active phase in its purest form.
That journey, from a kid with a compass to a pilot in that cockpit, that's the path. A transformation from just having potential to wielding real intuitive power.
So bringing it all home, what's the final takeaway for us? I think it comes down to something figures like Einstein and Temple Grandin understood deeply. Work with your strengths.
Mastery is a function of time, but it has to be time applied with maximum intensity. And you can't get to that level of intensity if you're always fighting against your own nature.
Right. Einstein was terrible in the lab, but he was a genius at thought experiments. So he leaned into that. Temple Grandin used her visual thinking and her deep empathy for animals, strengths that others misunderstood, to completely revolutionize an industry.
So success comes from finding how your brain uniquely works, that primal inclination, and then leaning on it as hard as you can. That's what awakens your intuitive power.
And this all depends on the final critical factor, qualitatively rich time. It is not enough to just put in the hours.
Every failure, every setback has to be a learning experience. You have to reflect, internalize, and use it to question your assumptions. You have to be awake and engaged in the process.
And the sources point out that our modern world pushes us toward extreme specialization. We separate everything, art from science, military from civilian. And in doing that, we lose that sense of interconnectedness that masters like Leonardo and Goethe thrived on.
Okay, so that leads us to our final provocative thought for you this week. If the goal is synthesis, what's one single action you could take, maybe something that seems small, to deliberately connect two completely separate areas of your knowledge.
By forcing that uncomfortable synthesis, you might just open a door to a new solution, a new perspective that's only visible when you look through that unified lens, the lens of the masterful mind.